citations are a page and a half long, but we take them as they are, and that's what's being presented today. They will be presented in alphabetical order with the assistance in the presentation of the Vietnam Veterans Incorporated Honor Guard. And following the reading of the citation, each individual that is being honored and inducted today, or who they are representing, or who's representing those inductees, will have a moment to speak at the podium and share some of their own thoughts. And we also invite you to please come up if you have your camera, or your phone, I should say, and take a picture while they are at the front of the stage. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alan, and he will continue on with the induction ceremony. I really apologize. This is really throwing me off today, but and I know you're not supposed to acknowledge when something is tripping you up, but as a small crowd, you guys are our family, and I thought I could share that. So thank you again for joining us today. Let me present Alan Smith. Major.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everyone. We're certainly honored that you could all be here to attend this awesome ceremony. So our first recipient, or honoree, is Sergeant David Clement, United States Army, Vietnam, January 8th, 1971, Greene County. Go ahead. Awarded the Silver Star for gallantry in action while engaged in military operations involving conflict with an armed enemy force in the Republic of Vietnam on 8 January 1971. When his squad came under intense fire, Sergeant Clement maneuvered his men into the contact area and directed their fire on a hostile force. During the initial exchange of fire, Clement personally engaged and silenced 2 enemy soldiers. Sergeant Clement's bold and gallant actions are in keeping with the highest tradition of the military service and reflects great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Accepting this honor for Sergeant David J. Clement is Joanne Clement Maelstrom, his sister.
Excuse me, I got a little emotional. I am Joanne Clement Maelstrom. Our only brother, Sergeant David Joseph Clement, served in the Vietnam War. He enlisted at the exact same time as the draft, as Davy heard the stories from our dad, uncles, cousins, and an aunt of their military duties. Davy caught the roar of the tiger. After arriving in Vietnam, he set his sights to become a ranger. Only 20% of enrollees accepted in this particular long-range reconnaissance patrol program. Rangers were the eyes and the ears of the United States Army. Ranger men teams conducted high-risk intelligence gathering, surveillance, and ambush operations deep within enemy-held territory. Operating far from base, Rangers provided crucial reconnaissance on the North Vietnamese Army and VetCon movements. By early 1969, they were identified as 75th Infantry Regiment units. Sergeant Dave would fall asleep on the bed of the forested jungle. Roaches would crawl on him throughout his sleep, if he could sleep. There was always the need to listen for the enemy lurching around. Crew leader of 5, he was charged with throwing the grenades toward approaching enemy troops. Afterward, he was the first to approach the fallen enemies to ensure full extinguishment. Quoting Sergeant Dave from his book, From What It's Worth, "War is the most terrible experience a person can endure. Sergeant Dave's trusted fellow comrade died in his arms. I don't know about you in audience here today, but not too many of us have held somebody as they breathed their last breath, and not at age 20. Sergeant Dave was buried last June at Arlington National Cemetery. Arlington seemed to save a focal plot in front of the Women's Military Memorial. He would love to know this is the area that grade school students are dropped off for the opportunity to walk through the white marbled headstones and read and wonder and ponder. Thank you, Tim Neff and Soldiers and Sailors Hall, for honoring my brother, Sergeant David Joseph Klimek, inducting him into the halls of this military institution, honoring Pennsylvania veterans who have demonstrated extreme bravery while serving the United States military. God bless America. Our brother had a story to tell. It was lunchtime when a farmer sat down for shade under a banana tree while his water buffalo grazed nearby. A huge tiger walked up to the farmer and said, "Man, I understand that you have something called wisdom, and it could give me greater power over the other animals. Can you give me some of this wisdom?" The farmer replied, "Unfortunately, I have left my wisdom at home. I do not bring it with me into the field, but I will get some wisdom for you if you allow me to tie you to a tree. So I will be assured that you will not attack my water buffalo." Tiger was leery, but because of his great desire for wisdom, he consented. Farmer went home and he gathered straw and wood. Upon returning, Farmer placed the wood and straw around the tiger and set it afire. Farmer then stated, "Tiger, behold my wisdom." The flames engulfed the tiger's body. As the flames burnt into the hide of the tiger, Tiger pulled and strained and roared. After the fire burnt through the rope, the tiger was freed. Howling in pain, Tiger bounded away into the jungle. This is the story of how the tiger got his stripes. Our brother, and oh so many that have served our country in active war, earned their stripes and returned to live in the mentally plaguing jungle of life. War taught my brother and your loved ones something called wisdom. Our brother ends his book with the following: "My dear children, let me tell you this. The sheer reality of killing and dying is a poison that will never leave your mind. Somehow, if I could make one wish with my life, it would be that you would never meet the dog of war." Thank you for listening about Sergeant David Joseph Klimek as he painfully earned his stripes and lived with the burn of his tiger for the rest of his life with post-traumatic stress disorder for serving in the Vietnam War. Thank you for listening.
Sergeant John E. Martz, United States Air Force, Vietnam, January 8th, 1969, Allegheny County. Awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight as a C-130E Loadmaster in Ban Mi Thuan, Assault Strip, Republic of Vietnam, 8 January 1969. On this date, Sergeant Martz and his crew completed the aircraft and delivery of over 239,500 pounds of critically needed JP-4 fuel to friendly forces defending Ban Mi Thuan from hostile attack. Despite the hazards of deteriorating weather, lack of navigational aids, and exposure to hostile fire, Sergeant Martz performed his duties in a manner making it possible for his crew to complete the vital mission. The professional competence, aerial skill, and devotion to duty displayed by Sergeant Martz reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Accepting this honor for Sergeant John E. Martz is Allison Castro, Captain, United States Navy, retired, his daughter.
Good afternoon. As stated, my name is Allison Castro. I'm the oldest of 3 daughters of John Edward Martz, also known as Jack. On behalf of my mom, Sally, and my sisters, Kelly and Jacqueline, we greatly thank you for the honor of selecting my dad to be recognized in the Joseph A. Dugan Jr. Hall of Valor. Our dad served in the United States Air Force during the Vietnam War as a C-130 Loadmaster, and he was the proudest veteran who wore his Air Force veteran's baseball cap literally everywhere he went. He has always been a man of few words, and that's probably because he lived in a house full of women. So unless you were someone who served with him all those years ago, or you visited his home, where he displays his shadow box proudly in his basement man cave, you wouldn't necessarily know the details of his time in service. Like many veterans, he didn't join the military for the awards. He was there for a purpose, for a mission, and for his team. When faced with dangerous situations, he relied on his training to guide his actions and probably didn't consider it much more than part of his job. For service members, words like valor and bravery don't occur to you until you're at an awards ceremony like today, hearing them read in reference to some harrowing situation that you and your team were a part of that you most likely would like to forget. My dad didn't tell a lot of stories about these times of his service. He did talk a lot about the friendships, the camaraderie, and of course, the off-duty fun and hijinks. My dad passed away in January 2023, and in going through some of his things, we discovered a large box full of pictures from his time in the Air Force, many that my sisters and I had never seen. Young guys doing the work of the day, posing in front of their aircraft, drinking Budweiser. I'm sure he would have considered the events of January 1969 that awarded he and his C-130 crew the Distinguished Flying Cross just another day on the job. This award, however, is stated as one of the military's highest honors, given for extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight and in recognition of an accomplishment so exceptional that it sets the individual apart from their comrades. Many of us have heard this called actions above and beyond the call of duty. It was definitely not a regular day on the job. I'm not sure how my dad would feel about being recognized today. I hope he knows how very, very proud we are of him and how his example of selfless service formed his children and influenced so many others around him. I hope he's watching from heaven today, wearing that Air Force veteran's cap, smiling. We love you, Daddy. We're proud of you. Thank you again.
Captain Martin D. Marvich, Jr., United States Army, World War II, January 18, 1943, Westmoreland County. Awarded the Silver Star for gallantry in action on January 18, 1943 at Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands. An enemy mortar position shelled friendly troops who were organized as a block across a ravine between two hills. Lieutenant Marovich, without regard for his safety, left his foxhole and climbed to a position where he could locate the enemy by the flash of their mortars. He passed this information back to his company commander and continued to remain in his advanced position to observe and direct mortar fire, even though enemy shells were bursting nearby. Due to the exceptional courage and initiative displayed by Lieutenant Marovich in these acts, the enemy positions were subsequently silenced. Accepting this honor for Captain Martin D. Marovich is Pam Billett, his daughter.
Good afternoon. I'm here today with my siblings, Nancy Finnessy and Martin Dennis Marovich, my husband, Greg Billett, my brother-in-law, Greg Finnessy, and several cousins to accept this award on behalf of my dad. You heard about my dad's bravery on Guadalcanal during World War II. I'm not an expert on his service record, although his commendations show it was stellar, and learning about his accomplishments has been humbling. Today, I want to share a little bit about my dad as a person with the hopes that you might get to know him as I did. Martin was the next to the youngest of 8 children who grew up on a farm in Yukon, Pennsylvania. Both of his parents emigrated to the United States from present-day Slovenia at a young age. They called their homeland the Old Country, and both of them instilled the value of hard work in each of their children. My dad was the only one of his siblings to attend college. When the selective service draft became mandatory, he registered. At the time, he was an agricultural education student at the Pennsylvania State College, now Penn State University. He enlisted in the U.S. Army in the fall of 1941, and following basic training, attended Officers Candidate School at Fort Stevens in Noumea, New Caledonia. He was a member of the AmeriCal Division, 182nd Infantry, Company C. Martin loved woodworking and was talented at fine carpentry. He spent many hours in our basement designing and building things to make our home more comfortable and attractive. He enjoyed Pirates baseball and especially admired Roberto Clemente. My dad also loved studio wrestling, specifically Pittsburgh legend Bruno Sammartino. He would jump up out of his favorite chair in the corner of our living room and pretend he was taking down Bruno's opponents. My mom would walk into the room, shake her head, and say it's all fake, but it made me laugh just the same. Martin was often seen with a cigar butt in his mouth, and my mom used to say that there was a blue haze that perpetually hung over our living room as a result. His brand of choice was El Producto blunts. I had empty cigar boxes full of broken crayons and the finger rings to prove it. Martin always had a small garden beside our carport in Youngwood. He grew vegetables and did most of our outdoor planting, always showcasing red geraniums in the flower box that he built alongside our front porch. He even made a self-watering flower box for my mom's coleus. My dad was the epitome of a do-it-yourselfer. There was nothing that he couldn't build or fix. My dad had a big smile, a hearty laugh, and was very friendly. He loved a fresh, homegrown tomato. He appreciated cars and purchased a new one every 2 years. His favorite holiday was Christmas, and he and I shared a guilty pleasure, eating sardines with onions, vinegar, and oil on crackers. My mom wouldn't permit us to eat them in the house because she hated the smell. So my dad and I would go down to the carport, turn over a couple of 5-gallon buckets for seats, have our sardine feast, and then promptly throw the empty tins in the outdoor trash cans. I know it sounds strange, but it's a memory I cherish, and I still love sardines today. My dad knew what he liked, and he stuck with it. We vacationed in Cape May, New Jersey every summer, and we always stayed at the Colonial, a large Victorian painted lady, because my dad liked the food. Every night, my dad would stop at the Hempfield Hunt Club and sign the book. Every Saturday night, we went to dinner at Hillview Manor in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and then stopped at Robert's Newsstand and Candy Store in Youngwood to buy the early edition of the Pittsburgh Press. When I was in second grade, my dad had a heart attack and was forced to retire from work. Part of his new health regimen involved changing his diet and getting more exercise. Every morning, he would give my hamster, Herman, a slice of banana when he was getting his cereal ready. He and I started bowling at an alley in Greensburg. He taught me how to cast in our backyard, and we went fishing at Youngwood Sportsmen's Association. Like many veterans from the greatest generation, my dad didn't really talk about his service in World War II. He lived with chronic health conditions that were a result of his time on Guadalcanal, but he rarely complained. He and I would watch MASH and look at his wartime photo albums, full of native islanders, palm trees, weaponry, and a very buff version of my dad. My younger self couldn't imagine him living and fighting on an island in the middle of the ocean. It was surreal. My dad passed away when I was 10, and he left his service medals and memorabilia to me. And now I'm entrusting them to soldiers and sailors. I want to extend a sincere thank you to Tim Neff for guiding us through this process, and to everyone here at Soldiers and Sailors for recognizing my dad's service and welcoming him into this exclusive club. My dad's efforts and sacrifices, along with those of his fellow soldiers, helped to preserve our way of life and protect our freedom. My siblings and I are delighted that his story will live on in this beautiful sacred hall for future generations to honor and learn from. Geraniums symbolize endurance, stability, and joy. Like my dad, they can thrive in even the harshest of conditions. I plant red geraniums every summer in my front flower box in memory of my dad. And often, they're still blooming when the snow falls. Thank you.
An interesting fact, our next inductee, John Neske, and the following inductee, Joe Novotny, were given their awards on the very same day, April 19th, 1945. John was in the Philippines, and Joe was in Germany. It's an interesting fact. Private First Class John J. Neske, United States Army, World War II, April 19th, 1945, Allegheny County. Awarded the Silver Star for gallantry in action against the enemy near Bosa Bosa, Luzon, Philippine Islands on 19 April 1945. Private Neske proceeded with a patrol until they reached a slight clearing where they were ordered to halt. The officer leading the patrol and his assistant then advanced to make reconnaissance of an enemy ammunition dump. They had gone a short distance when enemy snipers and machine guns opened fire on them. The patrol leader's assistant sustained a serious wound, but was able to return to the patrol, and before losing consciousness revealed that the patrol officer was wounded. Private Neske, without regard to his own life, took it upon himself to move forward to try to locate the wounded officer. Twice the enemy fire drove him back, but on the third attempt he succeeded in reaching the lifeless body of the officer. Under withering enemy fire, he moved the body to a position where the patrol could easily recover it. Because of Private Neske's undaunted courage, bravery, and devotion to and above the call of duty, it was possible to recover the body of the patrol officer. Accepting this honor for Private First Class John J. Neske is Joseph George, his grandnephew.
Good afternoon. I'd like to begin by thanking soldiers and sailors for the incredible work they do in preserving the legacy of our veterans. To the staff, the board, and everyone here today, thank you for giving these stories a home. I also want to acknowledge the other families here today. To be inducted alongside your loved ones is a profound honor. Each of these men represent the very best of us, and it is a privilege to share this stage with you. I'm here to represent my great uncle, my mother's uncle, John Neske. For our family, John was a quiet, unassuming man. He was the definition of the greatest generation, the kind of man who came home from the horrors of World War II, put his uniform in a trunk, and simply got to work building his life. He never bragged. He never brought up his time during the war. In fact, he never spoke about his service at all. It wasn't until recently, while we were cleaning out my grandmother's house, that we made a life-changing discovery. Tucked away in a group of unassuming papers that hadn't been seen in decades, we found an amazing handwritten story detailing how my Uncle Johnny received the Silver Star. It was a shock to all of us. We realized then that the kind, gentle man we knew, the great uncle who built the best Christmas trees that a young boy could ever experience, was also the same man who had displayed gallantry in action against the enemy. He hadn't just served, he had acted with extraordinary bravery under fire to protect his country and his brothers in arms. John didn't keep this secret out of shame, but out of a deep, humble sense of duty. He didn't feel he was a hero. He felt he had simply done what was required of him. But discovering this medal in his story, we didn't find just a piece of history. We found the heart of a man we thought we already knew. Today, we are finally bridging that gap. We are bringing his story out from those unassuming papers and into the Hall of Valor where it belongs. To my great uncle and to the other inductees being honored today, thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and your courage. Thank you for your incredible humility. Uncle Johnny, congratulations on this well-deserved honor.
Another interesting fact, our next award or inductee, Joseph Novotny, and our following inductee, Lawrence Novotny, will be the first father and son inducted into the Hall of Valor. Major Joseph W. Novotny, United States Army, World War II, April 19, 1945, Fayette County. Award of the Silver Star for gallantry in action in the vicinity of Thel, Germany, 19 April 1945. When his company was imperiled by an intense artillery, mortar, and machine gun barrage, Lieutenant Novotny, with utter disregard for his personal safety, fearlessly moved about hazardous terrain and skillfully located the positions of hostile armor. He then returned to the heavy weapons platoon and courageously led the men through the fire to strategic vantage points, from which he directed a damaging concentration upon the foe. Lieutenant Novotny's gallant actions and outstanding devotion to duty enabled his organization to seize the objective. Accepting this honor for Major Joseph Novotny is Lawrence C. Novotny, Captain, United States Army, retired, his son.
Mr. Neff, fellow inductees, honored guests, family members, and friends, my father would be pleased, proud, and humbled to be honored today by being inducted into the Joseph A. Dugan Hall of Valor. He would be pleased that his children and grandchild are here to witness this occasion. My sister Marjorie and I attended Duquesne University here in Pittsburgh, and after graduation were commissioned as Army officers. She is an Army nurse, me as an artillery officer. Her medical assignments ranged from Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, to Berlin, Germany, to the Walter Reed Army Hospital in Washington, D.C. It was here that she completed her military service as an Army captain. She has traveled from her home in Oklahoma to be with us today. Marjorie, it's great that you are here, and I am pleased to recognize and thank you for continuing the family tradition of military service. My father grew up in southwestern Pennsylvania, attended Uniontown High School, and immediately joined the Army. After completing basic training, he was assigned to an artillery unit in Panama, where their 75mm howitzers were moved by mules. I find this fascinating because some 30 years later, or less than a generation, I was in Vietnam moving my unit's 105mm howitzers by helicopter. After a brief period in Panama, my father was selected to attend Officers Candidate School, and upon graduation was commissioned a second lieutenant and assigned to the infantry branch. This led to his being posted to Europe during the Second World War as a platoon leader in the 1st Division, where he basically fought across Germany and in the process earned a Silver Star, a Purple Heart, and a Bronze Star for valor. He later served 2 tours in Korea during that conflict, earning another Bronze Star medal. He retired from the Army after more than 20 years of service, only to be hired by the Army Chief of Staff to work at the Pentagon, providing operational and logistical support to European allies and various countries in the Middle East, including Egypt and Israel. My father died in 2003 and is buried with my mother at Arlington National Cemetery. Like many of his generation, my father spoke little of his military service, especially of his combat tours and decorations. He was always a believer, to use President Kennedy's words, that one asks not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My father literally traveled the world, but at heart he always remained a virtual resident of southwestern Pennsylvania, grounded in faith, family, and friends, frequently asking, "How can I help?" and demonstrating that actions speak louder than words. Our family thanks you for honoring him here today.
Captain Lawrence C. Novotny, United States Army, Vietnam, October 26th through November 12th, 1968, Fayette County. awarded the Silver Star for gallantry in action while engaged in military operations against an armed hostile force in the Republic of Vietnam. Captain Novotny distinguished himself while serving as artillery liaison officer during the period 26 October through 12 November 1968. Captain Novotny repeatedly exposed himself to intensive enemy heavy weapons fire to locate and direct counter artillery fire on the enemy. When heavy weapons fire saturated the fire base from distant positions, Captain Novotny courageously moved about the beleaguered position to conduct an immediate analysis of the small craters. This analysis provided invaluable data which enabled aerial observers to locate the enemy positions and direct accurate airstrikes and artillery fire against them. When on 10 November 1968 orders were received to evacuate the fire base, Captain Novotny maneuvered through the deadly hail of enemy fire to coordinate covering fire while the base was evacuated. Later, an enemy round impacted amid a stockpile of high explosive ammunition, and resulting explosion rocked the command bunker, hurling Captain Novotny to the ground. Though thoroughly shaken, Novotny moved outside and found that the explosion had activated and scattered explosive ordnance throughout the area. Disregarding the danger of enemy rounds impacting amid these devices, Captain Novotny fearlessly moved throughout the area, identifying them and directing their marking for later destruction. On the following day, when the enemy launched another attack, Novotny again manned his exposed observation post and directed supporting fire to cover the evacuation of the base. Although he was scheduled to be evacuated, Captain Novotny remained to coordinate covering artillery fire as the remaining forces prepared to march out of the besieged fire base. Captain Novotny's courageous actions, outstanding leadership, and exemplary devotion to duty are keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Lawrence Novotny.
Mr. Neff, fellow inductees, honored guests, family members, and friends. I'm extremely honored to be inducted to the Joseph A. Dugan Hall of Valor. In receiving this award, I owe a profound thank you to my friend of over 60 years, Tony Accomando. Tony introduced me to the Hall of Valor and worked diligently with Tim Neff to ensure that all necessary information was collected and presented to the review committee for both my father and myself. I have known Tony since our first day as freshmen at Duquesne University. He was a former Army Signal Corps officer and decorated Vietnam War veteran who has devoted much of his adult life to helping veterans and their families in southwestern Pennsylvania and beyond. On behalf of myself, but more importantly, on behalf of these countless individuals, I say thank you. Undoubtedly, I am here today because of the influence of my father, but I am also here today because of the influence of the men and women of Duquesne University and the vibrant and wonderful greater Pittsburgh community. I received a great education at Duquesne, but received an even broader education outside of the classroom. As you know very well, Pittsburgh consists of many distinct, close-knit communities. And as a young man studying and living and working in a number of these, I was exposed to hard work, self-sufficiency, friendship, and values that made a lasting impression. The bridge that bonded the university and these communities for me was a group of men that I have thought of frequently since college. the Brothers of Alpha Epsilon fraternity. I thank them for their friendship and support, for serving with me in Vietnam, and for being here today. Perhaps most importantly, I thank the men, and in those days it was only men, that I had the honor to serve with in combat. They ranged from teenagers to seasoned multi-tour veterans, from high school dropouts to PhDs, from bachelors to heads of large families. Whether they believed in the war or not, they believed in their fellow soldiers and daily worked to do their duty to the best of their ability. It was a privilege to serve with the likes of Sergeant Fox, a seasoned chief of firing battery who every day got the best performance possible out of 6 aging howitzers, or Sergeant Cochran, our African-American mess sergeant, who somehow managed to serve the men a hot meal every evening of every day, even those that started with a helicoptered combat assault. Lastly, I thank my daughter, Dr. Jennifer Ann Lachlan, who flew in from Oregon to be with us today. She's a source of love and strength and represents the very best of America. I thank you again.
First Lieutenant Raymond R. Seibert, United States Marine Corps, World War II, November 24th through November 27th, 1944, Allegheny County. Awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight from 24 to 27 November 1944. In the successful completion of their mission, Second Lieutenant Seibert contributed materially to the success of the United States efforts by his undaunted courage, superb airmanship, and unyielding devotion to duty in the face of hazardous flying conditions. Second Lieutenant Seibert reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the Marine Corps and the United States Naval Service. Accepting this honor for First Lieutenant Raymond Seibert is Jim Seibert, his son.
My father took flying lessons in high school, but was working as a bank teller when the U.S. entered World War II. He enlisted and was accepted into naval aviation and flew F-6F Hellcats off aircraft carriers in the Pacific. When Grumman came out with the F-4U Corsair fighter plane that was issued only to the Marine Corps, he asked and was allowed to transfer to the Marines. He flew combat missions in the Marshall Islands. After the war, he spent his entire career in aviation, flying corporate planes for Alcoa and ultimately retiring from flying the Grumman G2 for the Mellon family out of Latrobe Airport. Aviation was his entire life, and I know that he would be proud and honored to receive this award. I want to thank Brecken Farrell and his father, Glenn, for submitting my father's name and making this possible. Thank you.
Once again, thank you. I'm going to now turn the microphone over to John McCabe for some closing remarks and to let you know that all of these plaques will be available for viewing in the Hall of Valor room, which is back over in that corner of the hall after we complete here today. Thank you very much.
All right, before just a few closing comments, how about a round of a round of applause of congratulations to our 2026 inductees. So before everyone goes, we want to get a group photo of the inductees, so remain here on the stage. I want to thank VVI, Vietnam Veterans Incorporated, again, for their honor guard, and they're here for us all the time. They do this consistently in the area, and we really appreciate when they handle the colors for us. Special thanks to my staff, a couple in particular, Tim Neff, who many of you, or some of you at least, have talked to today, but many of you probably work very closely with Tim getting to this day. Betty Lee for creating the plaques, and Amber McBride and her team for organizing the lunch we're going to have here shortly. I want to thank you all for attending today and those virtually watching for joining us. As I said earlier, you can learn more about us on our website, soldiersandsailorshall.org. You can find us on Facebook, lots of other social media, become a Friends member. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, so like many, any financial support that you can provide to us will be greatly appreciated. So once the photo's done, we're going up there. That's where the ballroom is. You're welcome to take the 2 sets of stairs we have, or one of the 2 elevators. The steps are 136 steps. So just so you know, before you start up, you'll go the spiral, and you go in a circle, and after a little bit, your head will be going in a circle. But I want to thank everybody again for being here today. Congratulations to our inductees, and we'll see you at lunch. Thank you.
Okay, if we want to stand, and we're going to take a group.